We are seeing layoffs throughout the sector. A recent study that we did, if we don't return to more historic levels of sales activity and therefore construction activities, we could lose 100,000 jobs.
We're in the process of laying off thousands of people right now.
It's a warning that comes as Ontario grapples with both rising unemployment and slowing home construction. Unemployment across the province has jumped to 7.8%.
100,000 jobs vanishing overnight while brand new buildings sit completely empty across an entire nation. The numbers coming out of Canada's construction sector aren't just alarming, they're absolutely catastrophic. What you're about to discover goes far beyond a simple market correction. This is the systematic destruction of an entire industry happening in real time.
If current sales levels don't return to more historic ones, $20 billion will be taken out of the Ontario economy.
Toronto's iconic skyline once bristled with construction cranes signaling growth and prosperity. Today, exactly one solitary crane stands against the horizon. Just 12 months ago, dozens of these massive structures dominated the cityscape. That visual alone tells you everything you need to know about the severity of what's unfolding across Canada's largest metropolitan areas.
Recent research commissioned by the Building Industry and Land Development Association shows how severe the downturn is. In December of 2025, the number of new home sales was 240.
The data emerging from December 2025 reveals something far worse than anyone anticipated. New home sales in the Greater Toronto Area hit just 240 units for the entire month, representing an 82% collapse from the 10-year average. We're not talking about a slight dip or seasonal adjustment here. When sales drop by more than 4/5 of normal levels, you're witnessing the complete evaporation of buyer confidence.
That's down 24% from 2024 and a whopping 82% from the 10-year average.
The condominium market tells an even darker story. The third quarter of 2025 recorded only 316 condo sales across the entire GTA, marking the lowest level seen in 35 years. Sales plunged 54% compared to the previous year and currently sit 92% below the 10-year average. Think about that figure for a moment. When 92% of your typical customer base simply disappears, you're not experiencing a market slowdown. You're watching an industry fight for survival.
The impact for workers has already begun, with predictions of much worse to come.
But the scale of this crisis becomes truly terrifying when you look at what's happening to actual buildings and the people losing everything. Across the entirety of 2025, new condo sales totaled just 1,599 units. This represents a 60% decline from 2024 figures and a staggering 91% drop from average sales volumes. These aren't minor fluctuations that markets typically absorb and recover from. These are extinction-level declines that fundamentally reshape entire sectors of the economy.
We need further action. We need the work on reducing on DCs to broaden to all types of housing types. We need the provincial and federal government to look at removing PST and GST. The Premier has committed that he is going to do that.
Toronto now carries 7 months of housing inventory sitting unsold on the market, the highest supply levels the city has experienced in 2 decades. Vancouver faces an unprecedented situation, with 2,500 brand new condominiums standing completely vacant. That number has doubled within just 12 months. These aren't distressed properties being dumped by desperate sellers. These are newly constructed buildings with modern amenities where literally zero buyers can be found willing to commit to purchase.
It's the latest warning from the home building industry about an impending cliff for construction.
We're seeing sales have stopped.
The industry says even as interest rates, the cost of materials, and municipal taxes have decreased, buyers still aren't biting. And no sales means no shovels in the ground.
The price movements tell their own devastating story. Toronto resale condominium prices have fallen between 13% and 14% from their 2022 peaks. Yet even after these massive reductions, buyers remain absent from the market. When significant price cuts fail to attract purchasers, you know consumer confidence has been completely shattered. One property located east of Toronto sold in September 2024 for $2.3 million. Last month, that same home went through a power of sale process for $1.2 million, representing a 7-figure loss in approximately 1 year.
Our sector in total employs 225,000 people directly and indirectly, so that would be a rather significant reduction.
The financial carnage spreads far beyond individual transactions, and the human cost is about to become painfully clear. Power of sale proceedings have surged 90% in recent months as homeowners find themselves unable to maintain mortgage payments in a deteriorating economic environment. The Building Industry and Land Development Association warns that without a dramatic reversal in sales activity, 100,000 construction jobs face elimination. Out of a total sector employing 225,000 people directly and indirectly, this would represent the loss of nearly half the entire workforce.
There's projects being completed now, but once those projects get completed in 26 and 27, there is going to be a real lack of jobs, lack of investment, lack of a new activity, and lack of delivery of new homes in 28 and 29.
These aren't abstract statistics or theoretical projections. We're talking about electricians, plumbers, framers, laborers, project managers, and inspectors who built their careers in construction. These are entire families watching their primary income sources evaporate. Layoffs are already spreading throughout the sector right now, not as some distant future possibility. Developers have confirmed that workforce reductions are occurring across the industry as projects get cancelled or indefinitely postponed.
Despite the Ford government's new law aimed at helping home builders free up cash and fast-track projects, the industry is still calling for more help, asking for provincial and federal tax breaks to lower construction costs.
The economic ripple effects extend far beyond construction sites. If sales don't recover to more sustainable levels, economists project that $20 billion will be extracted from Ontario's economy alone. This isn't just about hammers and hard hats. That figure encompasses retail operations, manufacturing facilities, service providers, every appliance that won't be installed, every lumber order that won't be placed, every restaurant that loses the lunch crowd from job sites that no longer exist.
Without a substantial reset on the taxes that new home buyers have to buy, we're going to be in a very serious situation.
Government responses have failed spectacularly, and the interventions everyone expected to work have backfired in ways nobody saw coming. The Bank of Canada slashed interest rates down to 2.25%, reaching nearly the lowest borrowing costs seen since 2023. Traditional economic theory suggests that reduced rates should trigger demand and reignite purchasing activity. Instead, buyers have stepped back even further from the market when monetary policy relief completely fails to draw consumers in. The underlying problem transcends simple affordability metrics. The real issue becomes a fundamental lack of trust in the economic future.
Lower interest rates and lower prices should be driving buyers into the market. But economic uncertainty over tariffs means it no longer makes financial sense for builders to start new projects.
Toronto attempted to stimulate activity by deferring or eliminating development charges, the fees developers pay to help fund infrastructure on projects dedicated to purpose-built rentals. Ottawa and Queen's Park moved to remove the HST for first-time homebuyers on properties valued under $1 million. Yet, despite these interventions, the Building Industry and Land Development Association insists that broader action is desperately needed. They're calling for the provincial and federal governments to eliminate PST and GST across all housing types, not just targeted categories.
Those taxes are not paid by our industry. They're passed through to the consumer. And I think the consumer is currently voting with their pocketbook.
The tariff uncertainty created by deteriorating trade relationships means developers can no longer make the financial calculations work for new projects. It no longer makes economic sense to break ground on construction when you have no clarity about what trade policy will look like 6 months into the future. Projects pause, workers receive termination notices, and the entire development pipeline dries up completely.
That regardless of the changes in market forces, regardless of some of the adjustments in taxes, price points are still too high.
The individual stories emerging from this collapse reveal a human tragedy that statistics alone cannot capture. Real estate agents who built successful careers over decades now find themselves struggling to generate basic income. One agent in the Greater Toronto Area admits she's barely making ends meet as her net income has dropped catastrophically. Where she previously earned between $200,000 and $300,000 annually, Her income collapsed to less than $50,000. She describes having to beg potential clients to even view properties, a complete reversal of the market dynamics that existed just a few years ago.
That group says it's beginning to see the impact of the province's stalled housing starts, and layoffs amongst the trades are taking hold.
Workers are being terminated in mass virtual meetings, with 15 people on a single video call while a vice president reads from a script informing them their positions are eliminated effective immediately. Young professionals who fought for months to secure corporate positions are receiving layoff notices within their first year of employment. They're asking how to apply for unemployment insurance because they've never needed to navigate that system before. These individuals followed the prescribed path: get educated, work hard, build a career, only to have the economic foundation pulled out from underneath them before their careers even properly began.
A year from now, give or take, those people that are working on all those high-rise projects that are getting finished are going to be unemployed, which is terrible.
One young woman received her termination notice at 5:05 in the evening on a Thursday. She clocked out for what she thought was a normal end to her workday and immediately received notification that her employment had been terminated. She's left wondering what she's supposed to do now, how she's supposed to pay rent, how she's supposed to buy groceries, what positions she should even apply for when the entire job market is simultaneously contracting.
Although all housing types are seeing a slowdown, it's the condo market in the GTA that has felt the brunt of the decline.
The long-term implications of this collapse extend far beyond immediate job losses into something far more permanent and destructive.
A report from Urbanation this week shows just how sharp the contraction has been.
Urban Nation research projects that by 2029, there will be 0 new condominiums ready for sale in the Greater Toronto Area. Not a reduced number, not a slowdown, but literally 0 units. The development pipeline is completely empty. This isn't a market taking a temporary breather before resuming normal activity. This represents an industry that has been strangled by economic conditions and policy failures to the point where it may not recover for half a decade or longer.
New condo sales in 2025 totaled 1,599 units. That number is down 60% from 2024 and 91% from the 10-year average.
Meanwhile, 26,000 condominium units are scheduled to arrive in the GTA over the next 18 months. Developers need to achieve pre-sale targets before they can secure financing to break ground on new projects. When they cannot hit those benchmarks, financing evaporates. Projects get postponed indefinitely and more workers face termination. This creates a doom loop where weak demand leads to project cancellations, which leads to job losses, which further weakens demand. The workers losing their positions today won't wait around until 2030, hoping construction might eventually restart. They'll retrain for different industries, relocate to other provinces, or emigrate to different countries entirely. When the market eventually attempts to recover, there won't be an experienced workforce remaining to actually build anything. Once you destroy an industry's human capital, you don't simply press pause on a video. Skills leave, experience walks out the door, apprentices never receive training, and the entire knowledge base evaporates permanently.
Ontario lost 38,000 jobs between April and June, mostly in manufacturing.
The broader economic indicators reveal this crisis extends far beyond housing into every corner of Canadian employment. The fourth quarter of 2025 recorded the worst period of job cuts since the 2008 financial crisis, actually exceeding the employment losses seen during pandemic lockdowns. A total of 259,000 positions were eliminated in a single quarter. The government sector alone cut 308,000 jobs throughout 2025. The technology industry eliminated 154,000 positions. Part-time employment nationally has declined by almost 1 million workers. These are people losing the supplementary income they desperately need just to cover basic household expenses.
And the province has missed its goal of building 125,000 new homes, hitting about 75% of that target in 2024.
Multiple job holders dropped by 505,000 across the country. That represents 500,000 Canadians who lost their second source of employment while working multiple positions simply to keep pace with the rising cost of living. There are currently 1.8 million Canadians who have been actively searching for work for 27 weeks or longer. These aren't individuals who gave up and stopped trying. These are people making genuine efforts every single day to find employment, but the positions simply don't exist in the current economic environment. The unemployment rate sits at 4.1%, matching levels last seen in 2017. However, back then, the trend line was moving downward, indicating improvement. Right now, the trajectory is pointing upward as the labor market continues to deteriorate. Nearly 1/3 of all Canadian mortgages are scheduled to reset during 2026 at higher payment levels, creating another wave of potential financial distress for homeowners who are already struggling.
We have a lot of surplus land in Ontario. And I think in Ontario alone, over 200 sites. Not all could be available for housing, but let's repurpose that land where we can. Let's repurpose it so we can get affordable housing starts, work with non-for-profits.
For homeowners caught in this crisis, the consequences have become deeply personal and potentially devastating. One homeowner facing a power of sale situation describes losing her home to the banks as a very real possibility if she cannot complete a sale soon. When banks don't receive full mortgage payments, they notify the borrower of the deficiency. If the situation isn't fully resolved within 3 months, financial institutions are required by law to turn the property over to their legal departments to initiate power of sale or foreclosure proceedings. These actions have increased by 90% compared to levels seen just a few months earlier. The national average sale price for homes sold in October stood at just over $690,000, down 1.1% from the previous year. The condominium market is being described as heavily favoring buyers. Except there's a fundamental problem with that characterization. There are almost no buyers to be found anywhere. From investors to individual homeowners, demand has essentially disappeared from the marketplace.
But provincial officials told Global News any kind of tax holiday isn't under consideration, and tax breaks would be aimed at buyers rather than builders.
Provincial officials have indicated that any kind of broad tax holiday for the construction industry isn't currently under consideration. Tax breaks being discussed would be aimed at purchasers rather than builders themselves. The Ford government is examining how to work collaboratively with Ottawa on potential solutions. The federal government has pledged to utilize unused public lands to construct affordable housing units. Ontario alone has identified over 200 surplus sites that could potentially be repurposed, though not all would be suitable for residential development. With 100,000 jobs hanging in the balance and $20 billion at stake, what happens next will determine the future for millions of Canadians. If this opens your eyes to what's really happening, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation into the economic crisis unfolding across North America.